Hey everybody, we are back with part 2 of our running backs preview podcast, and now we are live with a roundtable. No Nat, sadly, today. He's our usual facilitator, but the dad life called yet again. What a shocker for our guy. So hopefully we'll be back for our next positional roundtable. We'll hit wide receivers on the next one. These will be every Wednesday we record these, so be tuned in for that. But we're hitting the most important position. That's the running back position, where you get tons of your fantasy points, but tons of volatility. We don't know who's going to stay healthy, who's going to break out. Every year there's just tons of turnover. I saw a stat like 50% of the top 12 running backs. I thought we had Keegan, but he just sprinted somewhere. But top 50% of the top 12 running backs don't repeat the next year. The guys you draft don't actually pay off. So tons of volatility. We got to make sure we get as many minds as we can. So that's why today we've got CJ, Jimbo, Slice, and Keegs, the trusty RSJ crew, with me today. I'm going to be feeding them the questions. I'll summarize my picks as well, too, at the end of them all. Just try to give you guys as many opinions as we can. Gentlemen, how are we doing tonight?
Fantastic.
Doing great.
Good.
Doing awesome.
Everyone sounds so thrilled to be here. As you can hopefully hear their enthusiasm coming through. But we're going to start off right at the top of the draft. And there's kind of a consensus big three in every draft. That's Saquon, C-Mac, and Kamara. And we want to know, who would the RSJ crew take? So, CJ, why don't you lead us off? Who's your number one guy at the top of the board?
All right, so I'm going to go with Christian McCaffrey. I just think that he's just a true workhorse. I mean, he had 97% of the snaps last season. And although there has been some coach speak lately about wanting to spell him from some snaps, they said that his touches would remain the same. And I mean, his backups still suck. But Cameron Artis-Payne, who hasn't done anything in 10 years. Scarlett is a rookie who's kind of whatever. And I don't know, I just think he's going to continue to get his necessary touches and he'll just be in a really good offense still. I mean, if Cam stays healthy, DJ Moore is going to get better. Samuel's going to be better. Olsen's hopefully healthy. They have a lot of potential, so I like him this year.
Alrighty, Jimbo, what do you think of that?
I still like Saquon at number one. I know that'll probably get some disgusting reactions from you, but the volume's there. He's going to get 20 carries a game, and it's dump off city there in that atrocious offense. So he catches so many passes. Where in PPR and half PPR, he's just gonna it's insane how many points he racks up. And the thing is that he's so consistent, and he's always that huge threat to rip off like a 60-yard touchdown run. So I mean, I can't not pass on Saquon.
Alrighty, Keegs, you in agreement with these two, or you got a different guy in mind?
Yeah, I'm going the third direction. I think Kamara. I mean, it's tough because there's a reason why these guys are the top three. Is that any one of them could really go one. And but I think just when you look at Kamara, with Ingram finally out of his way and what he was able to do for the first 4 games last year when Ingram was out, and he's got a Hall of Fame quarterback, Hall of Fame coach, and the highest paid receiver in the league, and he's the guy pacing the offense. He's catching balls. He's become a better runner the last couple of years, and I think he's going to go nuts this year.
I'm with you. I'm siding with the best offense, even if his role isn't quite as huge as the other two. I just love the touchdown upside, as you mentioned, historic pace without Ingram there. He's been the running back 3 and 4 the last 2 years, so if that's his floor and the ceiling we might not have seen yet, I'm siding with Kamara. So we got our first one, Alvin Kamara, the number one pick. You two are idiots otherwise. We're going to move on, though, to another question that could really make or break fantasy seasons. A guy that's been the number one running back in back-to-back seasons, the only running back to actually do that in 15 years, and that's Todd Gurley. There's tons of hate now about Todd Gurley, the knee obviously being a part of that. So the next question I'm going to pose to you guys is, to Gurley or not to Gurley? And I'm going to start with you, Jimbo, because I know this is a question you've been weighing quite heavily these last few weeks.
It's true. I'm actually starting to waver a little bit, where I'm kind of pumping the brakes on him, but I think in the second round, I think I'd be okay taking that risk. I can't do it in the first. You really need to lock down that first-round pick like you saw last year with Lev Bell, and I just don't know if you can do that again with Gurley this year.
What about you, Keegs? What's your opinion on it?
I just feel I don't know. I'm kind of lukewarm on Gurley. I guess it's not that I wouldn't take him, but I'm not personally going to take him. And it's more I think he could have a solid year. He could still be Gurley, or he could completely fall apart again. And either way, I just don't really want to deal with it personally. So I don't hate him, and especially like Jimbo says, if you can get him early to mid-second, I think that's a smart pick. But personally, I don't think I'm going to do it.
What do you think, CJ?
We all know my stance by now. I fucking hate the guy. I'm not doing it. I'm cemented into my take for the rest of the summer, and that's it. I mean, just McVay loves Henderson, as Mr. Schefter told us on the podcast. And he just showed that he's not scared of limiting Gurley if he even sees anything, even if it's a Super Bowl, even if it's the biggest game of his life. He doesn't care. So that's my take on that.
Well, at least all three of these guys are wrong. Gurley should be a first rounder, number 7 on my big board, 40 touchdowns in 2 seasons these last 2 years. He's still going to be the goal line hammer in the league's most explosive offense these last 2 years. I don't see why he doesn't get 15 touchdowns. Everybody's at risk of getting hit in the knee and getting a flare up. I have no problem taking this guy within my top 7 or so picks. I love Todd Gurley. I think he's going to do exactly what he's been doing, just reduced a little bit in terms of volume, but not reduced in role at the goal line, which is where it matters most. So I'm all about him in round 1, even if you guys are all wishy-washy. Not a fan.
Well, I mean, anybody can get hit in the knees, but not everybody has arthritis at 23.
Yeah, I mean, old man. But anyone who has surgery, so everybody who has ACL surgery ends up developing arthritis. So like Dalvin Cook, we're all so high about. No one's scared about him.
Except for Tom Brady.
Yeah, the superhuman. Not everybody can be superhuman. And there's just they're managing it so well. He's lost weight to try to put a little bit less pressure on that. His whole a reduced role is going to go a little ways. I don't mind that they're taking a little bit. So yeah, that might cap his ceiling. But I think to me, reducing that role, reducing those unnecessary snaps like we're seeing with Christian McCaffrey and nobody's reacting about. I think that's a nice step to keeping this guy healthy and longevity for the season. I'm not worried about the arthritis. I think it's much ado about nothing. This is a goat. He played with it all last year. It flared up in week 1 last year, and this guy still put up 21 touchdowns in 14 games. He's going to beast it. You guys are all wrong. But anyways, let's continue on. The next tier. So a lot of you guys would take these guys above Gurley. Gurley's kind of right after David Johnson for me, my number 5. But most people, you know what? These other two, never mind. I'm skipping a question. Get a little horny ahead of myself here. But of the megastar holdouts, this is probably the second biggest question. So Gurley or not Gurley. The next question, especially if you're drafting this weekend or anytime soon, is the megastar holdouts, Zeke and Melvin Gordon. So the question is, do you think either of them pull that Le'Veon Bell and just kind of sit out the majority, if not all, the season? And where would you take these guys if you were forced to draft this weekend? Where's the type of place you're going to stomach that risk? Let's start with you, Keegs.
I don't think either of them are going to pull a Bell because they're also in different situations. Like they're both, under contract for the year versus Bell they were trying to tag him. I think that's got to factor in. They obviously it could happen. I don't think either of them are going to Le'Veon it. I think Melvin Gordon will probably last longer of the two because I think Zeke's going to become more and more of a priority and Jerry Jones will spend the money. I'd probably go late 1, early 2 for Zeke if he's there, if he makes it that far, and I'd have to wait until probably at least the 3rd round for Gordon.
What do you think, CJ?
Yeah, I still don't think Zeke's going to hold out. I mean, Jerry Jones, he's going to end up paying him at some point, or I don't know. I just feel like Zeke just really likes football, and I don't know. I see him; he'll be there week 1, but then you've kind of changed my tune on Gordon a little bit. He just doesn't. He seems like really into just holding out as long as possible. And the Chargers really don't give a shit about him. They have 2 good backs with Eckler and Jackson. And I think they can stomach either trading him or just being like, all right, you can sit there and do nothing for the season.
So where would you, if you were drafting on Sunday, which I am, where would you consider both of these guys?
I think Zeke, I would still go end of the 1st, early 2nd. Gordon, I don't know, 3rd, maybe?
Okay, so
maybe
it's still
mid to late 3rd.
Okay.
Yeah,
what about Dalvin Cook versus Zeke? Would you take Dalvin Cook while the holdout's going on, or are you still willing to stomach that Zeke risk?
No, I'd do Zeke.
You'd still do Zeke? Okay. I mean, he is my number 1 overall player if he's there, so that's why I'm more willing to stomach it. What about you, Jimmy?
I think these guys touched on it pretty well. At least with Melvin Gordon, he's got 2 really good replacements there, so I don't see any reason to be drafting him if I was in your shoes on Sunday.
Yeah.
Maybe the closer it gets, he comes back, fine. But even still, then he's not someone I'm trying to get this year. At least with Zeke, though, I would still take him mid-1st right now. After those big 3 guys, I'd maybe David Johnson, and then I'd still take him middle of the 1st because there's no way he doesn't come back. I feel like he has to come back, and he's not good.
Would you take him above like those target hog clear cut, the Devontae Adams, the DeAndre Hopkins, the Odell tier, or would you go with those guys and then Zeke?
I'd probably put him right above Hopkins and Adams. Yeah.
Okay, interesting. So if you're drafting at 11, if he's still holding out, you're thinking you'll take him at 11 there?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. I'm a little bit more cautious. Maybe that is because I'm actually drafting this weekend. I have him right around where Keegs was hitting that like 2-3 turn. That's where I'm willing to stomach because he is the number one overall player on my board again. If he does show up, 77 catches last year. I think the 16 touchdowns of his rookie season kind of returned this offense. Sparks, I would absolutely love this guy, but it is a huge risk with Le'Veon Bell. I don't know. He strikes me as like a stubborn guy. He's in like Cabo right now, so it's like, is he going to ever come back to the country even? I don't know. It makes me nervous. It's just crazy to think, though, too. I was like high last night talking to my buddies, and it's like, yeah, you could end up getting like Kamara at 1, Zeke at 2, and Melvin Gordon in the 3rd. Imagine if all of them just come back, and it's like you had Kamara, Zeke, and Gordon. How would you lose your league? That would be unbelievable. So there's a ton of risk, but the reward could be unbelievable payout. So if I'm doing best ball, and that's like the strategy, this is kind of a nice time to do best ball because you could realistically compile that team together, and you'd end up winning a tournament with that league. So that's just an interesting thought to stomach. Those 3 running backs would just be insane.
I couldn't even imagine your like high orgasm you had thinking of that.
I locked the door for a little bit and I ran out of lotion mid-stroke. Let's just put it that way. But after all these big 3 we talked about, and then Todd Gurley, wherever you want to lump him, there's this tough tier of running backs. I know, Jimbo, I'm probably going to start with you on this one because you're having nightmares of this tier. It's right around that first and second round fringe. So the candidates we have here are James Conner, Joe Mixon, Le'Veon Bell, Dalvin Cook, and Nick Chubb. They're kind of that like lower end RB1. If you got him as your RB2 somehow, you went RB, you'd be stoked. But that tier of running backs, that first fringe round tier, what do you think, Jimbo? Who are you eyeing if you're at pick 11 right now?
I love James Conner. I'm very high on him this year, and just like that Pittsburgh offense, that thing sings. And he used to lead back, and he can basically fill in for Le'Veon and do almost exactly what he did. So, all the receptions, the touchdowns, goal line work. I'm not too worried about like Jalen Samuels or Benny Snell, really. I think he's going to be the lead dog, and he's going to put up yards and points, and I think he's a true RB1.
Intriguing. Keegs, do you agree with him, or do you got another guy on your radar?
I'm a big Connor fan, obviously, but I'm huge on Joe Mixon going in this year. I think Zach Taylor is going to do wonders for that offense, and I mean, it's the Bengals offense. It's never going to be the 07 Pats, but I think they can establish the run with him. I think he's crazy talented. I think they're going to work him more into the passing game than he has been so far in his pro career because that's something he did a lot in college, and that's something Zach Taylor is going to bring to them. And, if their offensive pieces can stay healthy around him, like fucking AJ Green, then, I think Mixon's like definitely an RB1 and definitely a first-round pick.
Do you agree, CJ? What are your thoughts?
So I just love all of these running backs. I feel like they're all can't miss. And but I'm gonna say Nick Chubb. I feel like he's gonna be an absolute workhorse. With Duke Johnson out of the picture now, and then they do have Kareem Hunt coming back week 9. But I think if the Browns are really on a roll, and say if they're 6-2 or even 5-3, it's gonna be hard for Kitchens to kind of put those two into a committee if the offense is rolling. So, I mean, Hunt could take away some passing duties, but I don't know, I think Chubb's still going to get you the points in the goal line and probably the in between the 20s stuff.
Intriguing. Yeah, I just said it on the broadcast before this that Chubb, I wouldn't be shocked to see him score the most fantasy points of any running back in the entire league for those first 9 weeks until Hunt comes back. I am nervous about getting just abandoned at the end there. What if he's worn down and they want the fresher? I mean, Kareem Hunt is Kareem Hunt. He's an elite talent. He's as good as they get. So I don't see a situation where it's just like, it's not broke, don't fix it, don't ruin it. They're going to use Kareem Hunt when he comes back. So that's why I'm a little bit lower on Chubb. There's some intriguing stats about Connor. I was recently reading that the Steelers, their number one running back, has not finished lower than running back 6 in 6 straight seasons, whether it's been Le'Veon Bell, whether it's been Connor himself last year, whether it was D'Angelo Williams. Like, it didn't matter. It was always the running back 6, whoever entered the year as the starter. So that's a pretty good backing. That's why I have James Conner the highest. I am a little bit wary that Samuels is getting the standalone role. They're just raving about this guy every single day in training camp about his pass-catching role. So that gets me a little bit nervous. The receptions might take a hit, but when you got 15 touchdowns from Antonio Brown now up for grabs, I think a lot of that goes to James Conner. So he's my pick. It was Joe Mixon just a month or so ago. They had Jonah Williams, and the line looked so great, and A.J. Green. And I do love the Zach Taylor scheme, as you pointed out, Keegs, but ultimately losing Jonah Williams and then losing A.J. Green, it's just like, I don't know if these are warning signs or what you take them as, but the offense is going to be a little bit hit by those. So that's why Connor has kind of slidden into number 6. After this tier, we're kind of just going to run through a few of those really difficult tiers. We call them the tier jerkers. Me and Joey Hops, if you're listening right now, used to do this all the time. We're going to run through just the round 2 to 3 tier next, and then the next tier after that, the mid-round guys. But like I said, the round 2 to 3 tier, we got Aaron Jones, Derrick Henry, Marlon Mack, Damian Williams, and then if you want to throw in, a lot of people lump in Kerryon Johnson there. I don't think he's even close. Some people like Devonta Freeman up there. I've even seen a guy we love, Scott Barrett, have Leonard Fournette at 14 overall, running back 9. So those are. I'm glad you guys snickered at that, dude. It's disgusting. I would never even consider him in this tier. But the rest of those names, all very intriguing and all difficult to kind of sift through. Maybe you got your lead horse in round 1. You got a target hog in round 2 at wide receiver. And now you're looking at, who do I get for my second guy? So between those 4, again, Jones, Henry, Mack, Williams, and if you want Freeman or Kerryon, feel free to toss him in there too. Who are you going with, CJ?
I'm staying with Damian Williams. This coaching staff is just so fucking annoying, though. All off season, they're just, then I didn't get why in the beginning they even call him the workhorse. There's no reason to even do that. And then now, so he gets hurt, and then they kind of go back on their words just because I feel like Carlos Hyde and whoever else all those idiots are.
Darwin Thompson?
Yeah, whatever.
I think he's legit. You keep going. I won't steal you. Keep going.
So I feel like they just kind of toss them a bone, being like, yeah, Damian Williams has been doing nothing while you guys are grinding at camp. So it's gonna be a big committee and everything. But I guess the last 2 days he's been getting the clear first team reps. So I think all things are back to normal in Kansas City.
What do you think, Jimbo?
I'm pretty much all these guys listed in this tier. I pretty much hate all of them,
really?
Except Damian Williams. It's the whole Chiefs RB1 thing. It's just, the numbers are insane. I think Carlos Hyde is so irrelevant. I've had him a couple of years, and he's just done nothing except for get PPR points, maybe a touchdown. But, I mean, if he can do what Kareem Hunt did, but in a Kareem Hunt light version, and just because that offense is going to put up so many points, and I feel like he's just so much more talented that I feel like if he's going to keep dropping, I'm all for it this year.
All right, Keegs, you with the Damian Williams train too? We got 2 for him so far. I'm
definitely not avoiding the Damian Williams train, but if we're talking this group of guys, I love Aaron Jones. And I just, at some point, they got to realize that he's the best guy they got. I mean, they have other options. I get that, but Aaron Jones, he's talented, and if Rodgers can stay healthy, obviously that's an offense that's going to move the ball and score points. And if he can finally get the Jamal Williams size, brick out of his way, I think he could be, having himself a great year.
Absolutely. It was originally Damian Williams wouldn't have even been this tier for me. He was a leap above these guys, a fringe first rounder. I am nervous, though. They're talking about the committee. I like that you're pointing out, CJ, it's getting back to normal and Williams is taking the first team snaps, but I'm a little bit nervous. I know it sounds crazy, but Darwin Thompson, that 6th-round rookie, he looked unbelievable. I get it was against third stringers, but as a receiver, as a runner, everyone's raving about him. I guess he got some first team reps for the first time in camp on Tuesday, even with Williams back there. And I mean, Williams is good, but I don't think he's this elite talent that could fend off somebody that if they're really thriving. So I'm a little bit nervous about Darwin more than Hyde or anybody else. So I do side with Aaron Jones. I'm with you, Keegs. If he takes this job and runs outright, when he got 18 touches or more a game throughout his career, he's averaged 23 or something like that fantasy points. It was a running back 5 pace last year whenever he had over 18 touches. And Matt LaFleur's lead back 87.5% of the time has gotten 18 touches or more. Jamal Williams has been banged up all fall camp. So now it gives him more of a chance to establish a firmer grip on that starting role. I'm all about Aaron Jones. I almost think he might be a tier above the rest of these guys. Marlon Matt, I love Henry too, obviously. I'm different than you, Jimmy. I really like this tier as a whole, but Aaron Jones is at the top of it for me. But after these guys, it maybe is my favorite tier for value, kind of like falling to round 4. Sometimes you even see him fall to round 5, which is just ludicrous in my opinion. But we got Chris Carson, David Montgomery, Josh Jacobs, Mark Ingram, and then if you want to lump in those Patriots running backs between Sony and James White, a lot of times those guys are in this tier. So Keegan, who do you start out with this tier?
I am back and forth on a bunch of these guys, and it's particularly Mark Ingram I've gone so back and forth for since he ended up in Baltimore. And you look at, the pros, like the team, all they do is run, and, he's going to pace the entire offense, but then you got, all they can do is run, so the defense is just prepare for that. But I think with a guy like Ingram, who's obviously talented, he's a bigger guy, he can take some hits, and he's just the volume he's going to get. It's just, he's just going to chip away at it. And when you compare it to the other guys in this tier that are all kind of wild cards in their own right, I think he's definitely got the, I would say, the highest floor.
What do you think, CJ?
I'm just all in on David Montgomery at this point. I mean, you've kind of talked me into Chris Carson a little bit from I don't know, I just think he sucks. I just thought he did suck, but then you just talked me into him more and more. Where, I mean, if Montgomery did get reached for, I wouldn't mind Carson as a secondary piece. But, yeah, I mean, I think Terry Cohen is still going to get third down opportunities, and they'll probably just throw him in the slot. But David Montgomery is just going to be a 3-down horse in this offense, and Nagy's just going to ride him.
What about you, Jimbo? We got Ingram, we got Montgomery. We got anybody else on your radar, or is it one of those two?
See, this is my favorite tier compared to the last tier, which is just shitty. I would be fine with anyone in this category here. Chris Carson's the leader for me at the moment, but I would bet you that by the end of the preseason, it'll be Montgomery because he just keeps putting out more and more highlights. His runs are insane. He's so elusive, but with Chris Carson, that's such a run-heavy offense in Seattle, and I'm not too worried about Rashad Penny really coming in, doing too much damage to his stock, and apparently they want to get Carson more catches out of the backfield this year. They're saying hopefully, realistically, a nice 50 spot, which would be very nice PPR-wise. Yeah, Carson, Montgomery. I do like Ingram, like Keith says. Jacobs is great. And the two pass guys, I'm fine with anyone here.
Yeah, you mentioned the intriguing part, too, here is this tier in round 4. At round 3, the receiver is still available, whether it's Keenan Allen or, I don't know if you guys take the plunge on Antonio Brown or not, but there's still some true target hogs in round 3 where a lot of those running backs we talked about, whereas I think there's a huge drop-off, but these running backs, it's not a big drop-off from that last tier to this one, so I'm kind of with you, Jimmy. I find myself getting a lot more of these guys. I personally side Carson. You mentioned the increased receiving role. I think, at least 50 targets with Mike Davis leaving. He had led the team with 42 last year. Those are gone, plus the 100 or so carries that he had. So that vacated volume in the run-heaviest scheme of last year. I don't think he sucks. I know you said he sucks, CJ. I don't think he's too bad. He's a powerful runner. He bowls through people, pretty elusive too. I think he was number 6 in Pro Football Focus's grades last year, if you put any stock into that.
He's so hot on Google Images too. His biceps are fucking gigantic.
Oh my good God. Yeah, there's shirtless combine pictures that my hand and my brother always send me throughout the day. It's just what are you guys doing? But he's just a ridiculous composed human being. There is some injury concern there though, so I'm with you guys. I want to see what David Montgomery does the rest. I do love the volume. Marking him probably the surest volume bet. It's a very intriguing tier, but I sign with Carson on this one. So who do you guys think beyond these guys? So that's kind of you're through the mid rounds, and now you're looking out for those breakouts in rounds 7 through 10. There's always a couple guys that end up just exploding and being RB1s. Who do you think that could be this year in that tier? We'll start with you, Jimbo.
I am on the Tevin Coleman train right now, especially after the news with McKinnon's knee kind of acting up, but they're going to shut him down for a little bit. So that only means more first-team reps for Tevin here. And, he's now in San Francisco with Kyle Shanahan, his old guy, and Wolf has warped my brain into anytime I hear Kyle Shanahan, I think zone blocking scheme.
Yes.
And apparently that's going to fit him very well, so he knows the system. Offense should take a step up with Jimmy G back, so I like Tevin going in that late round. I think he could be a great flex running back if necessary.
I'm fully with you. I love the Tevin Coleman play. I wonder if he's going to stay in that round 7 to 10 range with the news. And we'll see whatever ends up happening with McKinnon. If he gets the IR, my good God, I love Tevin Coleman to explode. What about you, Keegs?
This one's tough, but I think the change of scenery is going to be huge for Duke Johnson. He's always had the talent to be a guy that could produce fantasy-wise. He's just never been the guy, so he's never really gotten that opportunity. And even to start the season, he's not really going to be the guy, I guess, because he's got trash Lamar Miller in front of him. But Lamar Miller has been on his way out of there for like 2 years at this point, and if he makes it through the season, either through injury or some kind of move, I'll be shocked. And I think either way, Duke Johnson's going to right away start chipping away, getting those touches. He's obviously a great receiver out of the backfield. And I don't know about RB1, but if you're looking for like a strong RB2 flex in the low rounds, I think he's a great choice.
The stat I loved about him that I recently read that was 44% of his catches since he came into the league have gone for either first downs or touchdowns. And you can just picture, like Deshaun Watson, he's always under pressure. That line still sucks. They've had no real running back to kind of help out. That Lamar Miller's just been a nobody since getting there. So I could see just this offense becoming more of a no-huddle shotgun, like Duke Johnson full-time back. And if that happens, I mean, you said no RB1 upside. It really could happen potentially if he does become that featured guy. And he was the workhorse at Miami, the all-time leading rusher there. And there's some huge names, obviously, that he ascended above. So I'm with you. I think both those guys so far are great picks. CJ, let's see who you have, see if I agree with you.
So the backfield just like made me puke all summer. But I'm going to say Miles Sanders. I just think he's by far the clear talent there. And just I don't know, if Saquon wasn't there at Penn State, he would have had first round hype and everything. He's like a legitimate 3-down back, and they invested a second round pick in him. So I feel like he's the back of the future. And even though they do have Clement, third down, Jordan Howard, disgusting goal line guy, and everything else, I just feel like he's going to be the day one starter and just ride it throughout the season.
Oh, man, if he can separate and take that every down role behind the best line in the league in that offense, it's going to be dangerous. We'll see. My pick is Darrell Henderson. I think he's got a less clear path to volume than any of the guys you have mentioned, but ultimately 10 yards per carry on outside zone in college. That was his scheme at Memphis. No team runs more outside zone than the Rams, so they really identified him as that perfect fit. They've already labeled him like the Kamara-style element to this offense. You mentioned Mr. Schefter said he's the most explosive player in the draft, so all those signs point to me. If Sean McVay loves you, he's going to use you, and I see a really big screen roll. I see a lot of change of pace roll, and then, of course, the upside if anything ever happened to Todd Gurley. Didn't look great in his NFL debut, but that was, whatever, behind a crap line in the fourth quarter of a meaningless game. So I'm not putting too much stock into that. I really like Darrell Henderson. I think he's going to blow up, and I love that his price is starting to go down after a bad preseason game. What about busts? So we've talked about breakouts, the guys we love in all the tiers, and who we think is going to do the best. But the hardest part is sometimes figuring out who's going to bust. But at running back, there's always a good handful of them. So which ones are you guys the lowest on busting? We'll start with you, Keegs.
There's a few guys that I think I could throw in here. Situation-wise, Le'Veon Bell makes me nervous just because the Jets are just a dumpster fire. But I think he's too talented to be like a true bust. I guess I'd throw in your boy Chris Carson in here, honestly, with the draft capital that it's costing to get him right now. And I don't know. I don't think he's the guy. I don't think Rashad Penny's anything special, but I think he's can be enough. And I think Pete Carroll has proven that he can make weird decisions and make those guys a true committee. So out of any of those guys, I think I'd go with Carson.
All righty. What do you think, Jimbo?
I'm going to say Marlon Mack. I had him last year, which was nice for most of the games, but he was the definition of game script heavy, where every time the Colts were winning or up big, they just rode the fuck out of him, and he'd score 20-something points. But if they were getting smoked and like they were playing catch-up, you'd never see the field, and he'd get maybe like 5. It's just too inconsistent for a guy going like the third round, and especially with all the other weapons they have back there. And maybe I shouldn't say weapons, but like Nyheim Hines won't go away. Andrew Luck's like mysterious leg injuries creeping around. Yeah. I want no part of Marlon Mack this year.
There's some great stats too. I don't know if you guys have read that Scott Barrett, like 96 stats for all 32 teams or whatever the hell it's called, but unbelievable article. And he had a great one on Marlon Mack and like to illustrate just how game script heavy it was. I think it was like 80% of his points came up when they were 2 touchdowns up or not or higher than that. And obviously, if Andrew Luck's hurt, they're not going to be up by 2 touchdowns quite often. So I think it's a really good pick there, Jimbo. What do you think, CJ?
I already know my answer is. Todd Gurley's gonna. I can't wait. This is exactly what's gonna happen. So Wolf's gonna get Todd Gurley in the second round. First 6 weeks, he's gonna be like RB1, RB2. He's gonna be texting me every Sunday, putting up 20 points. And then his season just is absolutely the shitter in week 7 when he's like, "Oh, why is Gurley only getting eight touches this week? Blah, blah. Then 6, then 5, then he's dead."
And then he's dead. Man, I can't wait to. This is going to be an interesting one because we've gone back and forth on this a lot. So we'll see who proves who wrong. I picked Kerryon Johnson, and I don't think he's going to bust, but I think a lot of people are ignoring the red flags here. C.J. Anderson, a better LeGarrette Blount, who they just couldn't get rid of last year. If you can't get rid of LeGarrette Blount, I think C.J. Anderson's going to have a bigger role. I mean, Matt Patricia's already raved about this guy endlessly, which you wouldn't know because no one talks about C.J. Anderson because he's the definition of unsexy, but I Googled newsed him, and it was like Patricia just gushing over this hard-nosed runner and all that. So I think he's going to give you the easy guy at the stripe. And then Kerryon's had a very checkered injury history throughout his career. So I think there's a lot of red flags for everyone that's ranking him at like 13 and 14 alongside the Damian Williams and the Aaron Joneses and the Derrick Henrys. I think he's at least a tier, if not another tier below all those guys. So I'm pretty nervous about him. I think the Marlon Mack pick's great. You know my feelings on Carson Keegs. I think that's a horrible pick. But I like the Lev Bell mention, though. I saw in that same Barrett article, he wrote about how Adam Gase's offense has been like 27th, 31st, 31st, and 27th in pace. And that's something that Le'Veon Bell, you can just see him getting bored or like disinterested in this shitty-ass team if Darnold doesn't take that next step. So I am more nervous about Le'Veon Bell than I have been in a while. He's a guy I'm probably going to avoid out of all those first-round running backs. But the last question we've got here, so we call them the penny stocks, as you guys know, the sleepers that you get for a penny and it could explode and blow up. So who's going after round 10 that you're just going to try to lock up on every single one of your team? And we'll start. I got to throw the question out there. We'll start with you, CJ.
Go with my man Ronald Jones. His first preseason games had 4 carries for 18 yards, just skyrocketed his yards per carry up to 4.5. He had a nice catch, nice catch in the screen game. Got 5 yards there, and him and Barber just look pretty good together. So I think he's gonna end up beating Barber out at some point this year, and just gonna have him on all my teams.
What do you think, Keegs? Who's your late round penny stock you got to get? You can give 1 or 2 if you guys want.
Yeah, here lies CJ. He died on the Ronald Jones hill.
Guaranteed death too. Yeah, there's no coming back from that one.
Well, you guys poked fun at my closet Steelers fandom earlier because, I had the Juju post the other day, and then I had something that came up today about Jalen Samuels. I think Jalen Samuels has great penny stock potential, but it's limited because of how much of a stud James Conner is and how much they clearly value him in that offense. Samuels is more, he's so versatile that he can get those touches and get that production even if he's not the main guy. But also, you mentioned him previously. I think people are sleeping on C.J. Anderson a lot. And, I mean, obviously, talked about Kerryon and, he could have his own issues. C.J. Anderson came in last year and completely stole the show from Todd Gurley. And I know that's kind of a different situation. Mm-hmm. But he clearly has the talent to at least be an NFL running back. He's been doing it for a while. And if Kerryon's not performing and they give Anderson his opportunities, he could just start bowling over people again.
It blows my mind that literally nobody talks about this guy. I think that's a really interesting name to toss out there that I haven't heard anybody else mention. What about you, Jimbo? Who's your penny stock sleepers?
One guy I kind of like Devin Singletary out of Buffalo. Maybe a nice injection of youth to pair with Josh Allen would be nice. I mean, the offense needs to take off a little bit for him to be pretty relevant, but LaShawn McCoy is just awful now. He's got no elusiveness. He might be something, but a nice callback to earlier in the episode when you mentioned Darwin Thompson. I watched him take like a little, not a screen pass, but like a nice 10-yarder and like across the middle of the field and maybe run 1,000 miles an hour, about 40 yards into the end zone, and all I could think of was, this looks like Alvin Kamara. Especially you put him in a Chiefs offense with Mahomes and all the attention to like Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce and all those guys. His just raw athleticism and speed could be a real weapon. So he's someone I'll take in like the very last round or second to last round.
I love that one. I mean, and Mahomes himself citing the explosiveness, saying this guy could be special, and when you get him in open space, exactly what you said. So, I mean, coming from Jimbo's mouth is great too, but coming from Mahomes, the god himself, saying we want more reps for this guy, and then he gets more reps. Like Mahomes, what Mahomes wants, he's going to get. So I'm with you. And when they first drafted him, I didn't know shit about him. I'll admit that. I looked and was like a 5'9", like 180-pound guy. He's a nobody. He's a little tiny scat back. He's going to do nothing. But then CJ, whatever your obsession is with shirtless running backs, you sent me a picture of him, and I was like, holy fucking shit, this guy is humongous. Like, he's jacked, he's a little compact ball, and then I read more about him, and the running back coach said that, he looks small on paper, but he's just this ball of muscle, and he hits people in pass protection, he's tough up the middle. We saw him, break tackles of these huge linebackers in the preseason game. So any weapon of the Chiefs is always a valuable penny stock, and if they do go to this committee, and this guy somehow emerges, I mean, number 25, it looked like Jamal Charles out there, gave me some Cha memories from back in the day. So I really like that one. And right now, though, if I'm drafting, I got to go after these holdout guys. Maybe it's Tony Pollard for the Cowboys. Maybe it's Justin Jackson late, who just bullied defenders on that touchdown run. So I really like both of those guys if I'm drafting today to potentially be this year's James Conner. So overall, those are my penny stocks. Overall, that's our running back roundtable. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Gentlemen, Keegs had to get out of here apparently, so he just left without saying bye. See you, Keegs. But Jimmy, CJ, and Keegs, if you ever hear this, thank you guys. You see it?
I'm here.
Yeah,
you're here?
Right here. He literally hasn't moved.
I have a
I
dot
ran,
that says
I
SK.
ran away for 5 seconds at the beginning and stopped shitting on me for it.
Yeah, you just had to escape the Wolf's wrath, apparently. But I would say, we got to start awarding points while this happens. That'd be like, I was just picturing around the take the entire time we were going with this. But I thought it was great insight, gentlemen.
Around the horn.
What's that?
Around the horn.
Oh, around the horn.
Around the take.
Shitty, around the take. That's our new one. We'll call it around the take. All right. Clearly, I've been doing this shit for too long. I'm on like hour 4 of recording right now, so fucking kill me. But gentlemen, thank you so much for coming in. I thought that was a fantastic roundtable, and we'll do this next week with wide receivers. So be ready for some more. And listeners, thank you for tuning in as always. This is the Wolfpack, rotostreetjournal.com. We breed and feed fantasy wolves, and this is the Fantasy Fullback Dive, paving your path to 2019 titles. If you haven't subscribed and liked and reviewed, please make sure you do that. And find us on all those socials, Roto Street Journal, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff, doing some great things this summer. And we're getting down to draft wire. Get a draft wizard in, everything you need. We're going to make sure you're ready. All righty, guys. See you later.
Peace.